Good evening, darlings. So tonight I have an anonymous request which says, "Dear Lord Thranduil, what is your most embarrassing moment?" Oh dear Lord. You know, these kinds of questions are so difficult, you know. I don't really have that many embarrassing moments. You know, I do have my fair share of regrets, but sort of something that's embarrassing, you know, not quite so much. So, well, they're just really bad and I don't want to talk about them. Let me have some more brandy. Oh, that doesn't help at all, does it? So, darlings, fine, I'll talk about this. I really don't like to paint myself in sort of a more negative way, but you all seem to want to hear about these things. I suppose it's only fair that you want to hear about my weaknesses, since you're willing to share yours with mine. I suppose I can do that. So, just as a preface to this, of course, this story takes place when I was quite young. I hadn't even taken the throne back then. I was still very, very young. Um, I had, of course, it was obvious that I was going to be heir, but I sort of had my official sort of coronation as prince and everything like that. But it wasn't too long after that, maybe only a couple of centuries, and my father was very good at sort of giving over responsibility step by step, very slowly. He wanted me to be able to sort of build confidence with each thing before he gave me anything new. And so there was one particular occasion where I can't even remember exactly what sort of contest it is. I've sort of blocked some of this from my memory. But I had been in charge of putting together some festivities, which included, I think it was a poetry, not a song contest, but as part of everything, you have to give your speeches and the whole rest of it. And there had been some cheeky comments floating back and forth in the court, and that's not at all unusual. It's quite common even in my court today. And I had been sort of a little more critical, let's say, of one particular noble in the court, and she did in fact end up winning the contest. And I made some comments. I don't even remember what anymore. It was something silly, some trifling thing. And as I go to give over the award, I it's very unusual for me, but I was sort of distracted. I had had quite a bit to drink, and I was perhaps playing a little to everyone in the room more than paying attention to what I was doing, and I may have tripped over the corner of my robe just a little bit. But everyone, of course, thought it was hilarious because, we're sort of quipping back and forth, and then I, hit her with something particularly cutting and then proceed to start the trip. I mean, I caught myself. It's not as though I fell flat on my face, but even that little bit of imperfection at that moment was, I suppose, to some, perfect comedic timing, but for me it was absolutely mortifying to do in front of, this entire room. There was hundreds of people in attendance, not just nobles. There was some commoners too, because of course we open our doors to any with talent. And I was very arrogant, I suppose, back then, and it wounded my pride greatly. Afterwards, I had to finish everything, but I'm sure my face was completely red for the rest of the prize awards, and for the sort of little bit of speech afterwards. And I remember very clearly afterwards going back to my chambers and just not wanting to come out again. And of course there was another banquet the following evening. Is part of, we have many week or 2 week long celebrations in the Greenwood. So it was during one of those, and of course I knew I had to be in attendance or my father would absolutely have my head. But I just could not bear the thought of facing anyone at all. And my mother came and had a good talk with me and sort of made me feel a little bit better. But even still, going back out there, I sort of lost my voice for the rest of that week. And it was sort of a joke for probably about a century or so. Every time that speech contest came up, poetry contest, what have you. So it was absolutely mortifying, darlings. But yes, I would say that probably was my most embarrassing moment ever. So I hope you enjoy it, darling, and I'm going to go back out there and see how everyone is doing, and I'll talk to you all later, so ta-ta, darlings.